name is going to make those annoying noises. Do you help me? Okay, I think it's time for us to start. I want to thank everybody for being here today. We had kind of some last minute email that went out to some of the activists, and we thank you for making the effort to be here today. And we particularly appreciate the media that are represented here today. We appreciate your covering this important topic. My name is JoAnn Fleming. I'm the Executive Director for Grassroots America, We the People. It is the largest constitutional conservative organization in East Texas and one of the largest in the state of Texas. I'm also the two-term chair of the Texas Legislature's Two-Party Caucus Advisory Committee, so I spend quite a bit of time in this building. So today we're going to address the border crisis. Welcome to Texas. We live in a sanctuary state. We were a sanctuary state before we had the humanitarian crisis that's crossing the border right now. And why do we have a sanctuary state? Because our state officials haven't taken care of business to protect the people of Texas. So I'm going to put a little substance behind that, and I'm going to tell you that what we have going on in Texas and across the United States is the de facto commandeering of state and local assets by the federal government. They're not asking, they're not alerting the state and local governments. They are simply barging in and ordering people around. And quite frankly, in most cases, they aren't even giving a notice. I heard a governor today say that she heard, by virtue of a rumor, that a busload of immigrants who are here illegally were being deposited in her state. I will tell you this, that the United States Constitution prohibits the commandeering of state and local assets that belong to we the people, unless the federal government has declared war or a time of national emergency. And I will tell you, they have declared neither. I crossed this state speaking to people, average, ordinary, everyday men and women who make the state of Texas work. They're simply trying to do a job to put food on the table for their families and to survive. And I will tell you, there's a growing sense of shock and disappointment in those people of Texas, and here's why. Because they already know they can't believe anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. Okay? We already get that. We can't believe that. There are too many things going on today that are a shock to the White House. So we can't believe anything that comes out of Washington, D.C., and I can probably count on one hand the number of federal officials that when they tell me something, I believe it. So what's worse than that is that the people of Texas have this growing sense, maybe we can't count on our state officials to take care of us and protect us either. In June of 2011, the Tea Parties of Texas sent a letter signed by thousands of Texans to Governor Rick Perry. This was a time when, in the 82nd legislative session, they had failed to pass a ban on sanctuary cities. We had a meeting with Governor Perry. We met in his office. We explained to Governor Perry that this is an issue of safety and security. It's not an issue of race. It's an issue of safety and security. And if you don't believe that, I'd invite you to read two very important reports. They weren't written by the Tea Parties of Texas. They weren't written by JoAnn Fleming. They are written by the Department of Public Safety. There is a 2013 threat assessment on the Department of Public Safety's website. Easy to find. Also easy to find are elected officials who've never read it. Here's the 2014 gang assessment. It came out in April. I submit to you that these two documents are all you need to know. That we need to have a ban on sanctuary cities, counties, whatever in the state of Texas. We need a ban. And why is that? We need a ban because we need to make sure that law enforcement has the full support of our state officials to do their job. To do what? To uphold the rule of law. They need to be able to protect us because I submit to you that nobody can prove that everybody coming over that border is coming here for a nice, safe, wonderful life. Okay? I would defy anybody to prove that to us. That you can tell us and assure us that everybody coming across the border has no ill intent. I will bring up another pretty important person, and that is Major Kelly of the Southern Command. Major General Kelly of the Southern Command. He has been before Congress and he's told them the open southern border is a direct and immediate threat to the security of the United States of America. Okay, so the Tea Parties didn't say it. DPS is telling you we've got a threat. And I would ask you, please read these documents. Please take the time to read these two reports, because when you read these reports, if you're like me, your brain will be screaming to you, how did we get here? How did we get here in the state of Texas where there are sophisticated networks of some of the most dangerous cartels in the world, with sophisticated networks set up all over Texas and working with transnational gangs in the state of Texas? How did we get here? That was in place long before this latest border crisis. It is a minimum expectation that the people of Texas have, that the folks that serve our state who take an oath of office to protect and defend the United States Constitution and the Constitution of Texas. Their main job is to protect the life, liberty, and property of the people of Texas, period. And I submit to you, in the sanctuary state, we're not safe. I'm going to deal with my friends here, but I'm going to tell you that we have had conversations, numerous conversations with the constitutional authorities. And I had a conversation with my own congressman, Congressman Montgomery. And we have all reached the conclusion that Governor Perry needs to stop asking Washington to come save us. Washington is not on its way to save us. We're asking Governor Perry and Attorney General Greg Abbott to work together to invoke Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution that gives states rights to declare an imminent danger. To declare an imminent danger. And when you're finished hearing from some of these folks here, healthcare professionals from the border, you will understand that we already have an abundance of evidence that we have imminent danger. Okay? So one of the frustrations is that for some reason, some people are focused on what represents 20% of the problem. The children. Now I'm going to say this right now. Those are horrible circumstances. And for those small children, it's heartbreaking. But you know, the federal government calls a child somewhere up to like 17 or 18 years old. And I have friends in law enforcement that are on the border who tell me that they have people that are portraying themselves to be 15, 14, 15 years old, that, by the way, are much older than that. Okay? So we're not talking about the cute little kids in diapers. We're talking about older children, and we're talking about 80% of the problem coming across the border, and those are adults who are breaking the law. We can't afford this. Texas can't afford it. The United States of America cannot afford it. We're asking Governor Perry and Attorney General Abbott to invoke this section of the Constitution and to call up the National Guard and the Texas military as defined by the state constitution, and to fund it. There are people in this building that have all sorts of grand ideas about how to spend down the rainy day fund. Let's use it for safety and security. Now, yeah, it's raining. It's okay. Now, I'm going to introduce, and then they will tell you anything else that they want you to know about them. I have got Jim Gibson is going to lead off. He is the spokesperson for the Texas Board of Volunteers. We have Katrina Pearson, Garland Tea Party, and a member of the Tea Party Caucus Advisory Committee. We have with us Dr. Margarita De La Garza Graham, a medical doctor from Tyler, Texas, and a good friend of mine. Heidi Teese is a member of the Clear Lake Tea Party Steering Committee. She's also a lead city Texas councilwoman. We have Maria Espinoza Lane with the Remembrance Project that focuses on the victims of violent crime perpetrated by illegal. We have Larry Corkmas, who is the leader of Tea Fire. Brad Myers with the Kaufman Tea Party, Mike Openshaw, North Texas Tea Party. We have Ms. Alice Monahan, Women on the Wall, and Ken Emanuelson with the Dallas Tea Party, and Grassroots Texans Network will round us off. But my parting words to you is, if you have not read these documents, I beg you to pay attention to what your Department of Public Safety is telling you. Thank you so much. Jim Gibson.
Thank you, JoAnn. I serve on the executive committee for the Texas Board of Volunteers, Inc. We're a volunteer group based down in Brooks County, Texas.
Can you go to the podium?
Can you go to the podium?
You can go to the podium.
Now the ones on the podium.
No wonder it says don't touch. I work down in Brooks County with the Border Patrol, Texas Department of Public Safety, and the Brooks County Sheriff's Office. We've been doing this since 2006, so we've been at it a while on a regular basis. Based on what JoAnn gave me earlier in an email, what I thought I would do is just give you a very brief synopsis of what we currently see down in that part of Texas. Now, when folks see our name, Texas Board of Volunteers, they sometimes assume that we're sitting down on the river. Well, Brooks County and Falfurrias, where we're at, is some 70 miles north of the border. There's a Border Patrol checkpoint that's located 4 miles south of where we base out of. And that checkpoint is what dictates the traffic in terms of human traffic and narcotics that may be coming through the area. Just give you some quick numbers to give you a sense of where we're at and where we came from just about 3 years ago. The surge that you're seeing in the news represented down on the immediate river area, particularly of females and children that you've been reading about. This surge started back in the spring of 2012. We tracked the Border Patrol monthly apprehension numbers for Falfurrias. And if you go back to the March, April, May timeframe of 2012, that's when you started to see the numbers take off. And they have been rising steadily ever since. To give you an example, in 2011, Falfurrias Border Patrol apprehended a total of 9,851. You fast forward to 2013, that number jumped to 24,598. We have already equaled that number this year, and we still have 3 months left in the fiscal year. It's reasonable to conclude that Falfurrias Border Patrol is going to exceed 30,000 apprehensions this year. Now again, keep in mind, this is 70 miles north of the border. It comes right up to 81. And I think JoAnn mentioned it a minute ago, the OTM factor, other than Mexico, that is consistently in our area running at 70% of apprehensions. The days of this being a Mexico problem are long gone. We've entered a new realm now, a new dynamic. And it's not just El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. It's Pakistan, it's China, it's Somalia, it's Ethiopia, and we confirmed this with Border Patrol. What we can't get are specific numbers and specific regions for country of origin. DHS does not talk about that. We had a conference call, to give you an example, with some of Senator Cruz's people up in D.C. about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And one of the questions that his staff asked us was, do you have any data on special interest aliens? And I thought that was kind of odd, that here you have a United States Senator staff asking me for information that they should already be getting. But DHS stonewalls them and they can't get to that data. So that's the biggest concern that we have as an organization, is what is getting through as a result of all the focus being on the women and children, the so-called humanitarian crisis that's taking place. Border Patrol's frustration levels are through the roof. They're changing diapers, they're feeding, they're processing, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is being out in the field looking for the bad guys. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're seeing in Brooks County, not to mention the property damage, the deaths that are involved with some of these immigrants that are coming in, that perish out in that harsh terrain. So there's a lot of stuff going on down there that people typically don't know about. Anything else you want me to cover? JoAnn?
Very good, and we'll have Q&A.
Thank you.
Sir, can you spell your name for the record, please?
Jim, J-I-M, Gibson, G-I-B-S-O-N.
Katrina Pearson, K-A-T-R-I-N-A, P-I-E-R-S-O-N, Garland Tea Party, representing one of the largest cities in the state of Texas. And I wish I could say that I didn't see this coming, but we did. Which is why if you go back and look at all the videos and testimony over the last 2 legislative sessions, the Tea Parties were here saying this was coming, warning about the crisis at the border, and the unintended consequences of doing nothing about it. We've talked to our local leaders, our state leaders, our federal leaders. And we have a governor who retired in 2011, but still pretends to be on his bench, traveling all over the country, talking about how great Texas is and how much money we have and our job creation. But when it comes down to the border, we just don't have the resources. We have the resources to fund pet projects like Formula One racing, like his slush funds, emerging technology, enterprise fund, which have all been audited and need to go. But everyone has this illusion that Texas is doing so great, even though almost 50% of our budget is federal money. But when it comes down to the one responsibility of the chief executive law enforcement officer of this state, we just don't have the resources. Today, I'm going to talk to you as a mom, because I am a mom of a son that is in the public school system. Because the public is not hearing both sides of this story. And they haven't. And we're going to make sure that they do. Because even the story the public is being told is not the real story. You see, because we're being told we have a humanitarian crisis on the border, and it's children. And they are refugees. Let me take a minute to read you the definition of a refugee. A person who has been forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, or a natural disaster. But it seems like all the data now, coming from even the liberal media outlets like MSNBC, are saying that more than 90% of the people crossing the border today are coming to break the law to enter the country because they think they'll be able to stay. They're seeking amnesty. That is not a refugee, that is a criminal. And I don't care how old you are. These people are not being forced to leave. They're being told to leave, they're being asked to leave. And many of them are coming on their own because they want amnesty in this country. And even though we're just now hearing about it, this has been going on for a couple of years now. So it's not really the 50,000 we're being told in Texas. We are now upwards of 290,000 of these illegals coming into the southern border, being distributed into American cities. Not just any American city, but into communities that are already strapped for resources. into communities who are already struggling. And they're saying it's on the federal dime. But the local law enforcement, that's a taxpayer issue. The local health facilities, those are taxpayer issues. And if they do end up in the education system, guess what? That is a taxpayer issue. And we all feel terrible for the young children that are being pushed here, either by their parents or someone else. No 6-year-old decides, I'm going to go to America. It just doesn't happen that way, as much as they want you to believe that. My compassion is coming in for the children of America, to the communities in America who have been abandoned by their representation, by their local leadership, by their state leadership, and clearly by the federal leadership. This got worse when Barack Obama passed his version of the DREAM Act. And then we had our own Senator John Cornyn vote for cloture on the Gang of 8 bill. This is human nature. Of course they're going to come in droves. And now, it doesn't even matter what bill gets passed, even if they do have more money go to the border, because our Border Patrol is being told not to enforce the current laws on the books. So what happens when elected officials don't do their job? The people do. This meeting today is so that we are letting all Texans know that we are standing with Texans. We are not standing with Republicans. We are not standing with Democrats. We are standing with the parents and the grandparents and the children of the state of Texas.
Thank you. Margarita de la Garza Graham. I was trained as a general and a trauma surgeon. I've been in general surgery practice almost 25 years, and I still teach ATLS, trauma life support. I was born and raised in a border town, the third of 10 children. Most of my family still lives on a border town, and I have quite a bit of first-hand information in addition to what I see in my practice and having spoken to infectious disease colleagues of mine. This is a public health problem, and what is happening in the border is terribly troubling from a medical standpoint. You just can't have mass immigration into a country without having anybody check the health status of every single person entering the country. When we travel abroad, we have to be vaccinated against many diseases that this country doesn't have anymore. By the same token, anybody that comes from another country to immigrate into this country has a whole slew of tests, physicals, health examinations done before they actually enter into our country. So really it's very irresponsible, medically irresponsible for us to allow this mass migration of folks without actually checking them. And then allowing them to go to every corner of the United States. So we know there have gone to Maryland, Georgia, Arizona, California. They're going in every direction, and we don't even know the names. And we don't ask the simple questions, even have you had weight loss recently? Have you had a fever recently? A recent cough. And I know that these folks are traveling in buses, private buses, and trains, and planes, and nobody is following these kids. Now, our social workers are very good at tracking TB patients. I'm talking about TB right now, but that's not the only problem. TB is very difficult. It only takes one person to infect a huge, it's a trickle-down effect. If you have one active case of TB, in fact, I do know personally an officer on the border who contracted TB and then took it home and had sepsis. So I know these first-hand accounts of some of the things that have occurred. TB is difficult to trace. It's very difficult to trace, and even with the technology. But it's even more difficult to trace if we don't even know who has it. That's not the only problem, TB. We're having a problem with whooping cough, and scabies, and HIV, and hepatitis A, B, and C. Some of these that are highly contagious problems. Those in our community that are the most vulnerable are our elderly, our children, in our schools. But then also you have the teachers, the social workers, and the list goes on and on. All of those of our patients who are already immunocompromised with either HIV or with any of the leukemias, anybody who's already immunocompromised, and then law enforcement, of course. The smaller percent, I think Steve already mentioned the numbers are children. I know firsthand also that we have actually processed MS-13 teenagers and young men. They're the recruitments and they're the reinforcements for the gangs while we're already here. That's a whole nother separate medical problem when it comes to trauma, because we know that's going to be up and coming. So that's something that hasn't been addressed either. And maybe that is the reason they did not want to have the media on the border early on. I don't know why they didn't allow folks, and maybe because there are a large amount of older teenagers, or who knows if they're immunized, who knows what disease they have, nobody really knows. I mentioned whooping cough. We already have a problem in the United States. We didn't have to have this mass immigration for that problem, because a lot of folks here choose not to immunize their own children. So we have this thing called herd immunization, HBRD, and herd. And all of those of us who did get immunized and protected the rest of the community, even that immunization is going away because so many people have not immunized. And there are strains now that are coming out. The vaccines that we currently have aren't even strong enough, because we have kids documented who have been vaccinated as children for the whooping cough, which is pertussis, who are actively contracting whooping cough. We're just not making strong enough strains. Anyway, I think everyone's overwhelmed. Our medical leaders have asked for volunteers from healthcare professionals and nurses, and there just aren't enough of us to volunteer to try and take care of the situation. Finally, I think that I would end by saying, I guess if I had a take-home message, it would be, don't be shocked if in 2 or 3 years we have an overwhelming problem with tuberculosis. We already have a problem in our jails, we know that. And it would be devastating to our whole community. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk.
My name is Heidi Teese, and I'm a city councilwoman in Union City, Texas, and I am here to emphasize that the reason these grassroots leaders are here today is called a final constitutional remedy to what we believe and what we all acknowledge to be a crisis. We are calling upon our state leadership to step up into the role for which they were elected, and that is the safety, health, and security of our beloved state of Texas, which we now know to be in imminent danger. One of the things that prompted me in the last week to step into leadership at the local level was not just the federal mismanagement and lawlessness, which is running rampant in our state right now, specifically on the border, but also because of the lack of action and active leadership from our state officials. We cannot trust the federal government to get this crisis right, because they are not only encouraging it, they are exacerbating the problem. Nor should we, as free men and women of Texas, be forced to bear the brunt of this burden of the crisis that they've created and have exacerbated through their subsequent mismanagement. Federal authorities are quite literally out of control of the health, safety, and security aspects of this crisis. This is what is typically called, in military and border security terms, an uncontrolled event. They cannot be allowed to establish a foothold within our communities. You've already heard from JoAnn that they are commandeering local resources. They are bypassing your state and local elected officials. They're going straight into your communities, and many times your elected officials don't know about it until after it's happened. Then they are left to react. The people are left to react. And you've seen what happens, such as in Lawrenceville, Virginia, Murrieta, California, when it is left to the people, because they have been left vulnerable by their elected officials. They have been left bereft of leadership. State authorities must immediately call a special session to deal urgently with this crisis. However, In light of our state leadership's inaction, we local leaders have decided we must act to protect the citizens within our own jurisdictions, no matter how small they may be compared to the great state of Texas. If we leave it until the federal agencies try and work something out behind our backs within our own neighborhoods, then we too are left with only poor crisis management. To lead, we have to anticipate the problems. We have to get out ahead of this crisis and send the message that we refuse, we resist to participate in the federal mismanagement and lawlessness inherent within this border crisis. To that end, I wrote a resolution that we passed last Tuesday in League City, Texas. In it, I cite as the authority for our action our very own U.S. Constitution and Texas State Constitution. Whereas the citizens of League City, Texas recognize their duty as law-abiding citizens to act in accordance with the U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution, and agree that our right to life, liberty, and property shall not be infringed, and whereas the federal government has failed to protect the homeland, our country, in accordance with Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, Texans, we, the people, have the right and obligation to protect our citizens in accordance with Article 1, Section 1 of the Texas Constitution. That reads that Texas, I need to remind our state leaders of this. This is very important. Section 1, Article 1, Section 1 of the Texas State Constitution reads, Texas is a free and independent state, subject only to the Constitution of the United States and the maintenance of our free institutions and the perpetuity of the Union depend upon the preservation of the right of local self-government, unimpaired to all the states. That is further supported by Article 1, Section 29 of the Texas Constitution. To guard against transgressions of the high powers herein designated, we declare that everything in the Texas Bill of Rights is accepted out of the general powers of government and shall forever remain inviolable, and all laws contrary thereto or to the following provisions shall be void. From there, we determine, and as the rest of the experts on this panel will attest to today, we know that what the problems are that are threatening the health, safety, and security, and therefore we have resolved to not participate in the lawlessness of these federal agencies. All agencies of our city are hereby instructed to refuse requests or directives by federal agencies to permit or establish any facility for the purposes of processing, housing, or detaining any illegal aliens designated as refugee or otherwise. To do as such is a federal felony. Our feds are not going to prosecute themselves for breaking their laws, but we have no such protections. Local government, nonprofit institutions, or as individuals. We, in League City, and we, the free people of Texas, still are a people of laws. And we require that our state institutions, our state leadership, invoke the rights of sovereignty of our state, declare an imminent danger, and protect the health, safety, and security of our citizens. Our expectations are high, but they must be in order to combat this crisis. So to do so and to encourage, not to encourage, to demand that our state leadership step into the role for which they were elected and which we as free men and women of Texas expect. I'd like to read these words to you from Frederick Douglass in 1857. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation, such as you might be hearing today, we the people, agitating for the cause of liberty, for the cause of our livelihoods, for the health and safety of our children and our seniors. They are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. This will not be easy, Governor Perry, but you are required to answer to the will of the people. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what people will submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue until they are resisted with either words, as we are doing today, or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants, the limit of tyranny, is prescribed by the endurance of those who may oppress. As a free woman of Texas, as a local elected leader in League City, Texas, I hereby declare my resistance to the tyranny of the federal government, and I demand that our state officials step into their leadership role and declare the sovereignty and the security of Texas.
Good morning. My name is Maria Espinoza. I am co-founder and national director of the Remembrance Project. We honor and remember Americans who've been killed by illegal aliens. One of our projects is the Stolen Lives Quilt. We memorialize the victims on a 6-foot-long, digitally printed, colored plate. This is the way we place and are placing our families first. To Honorable Governor Rick Perry and Attorney General Abbott, over the past 5 years, we have met with grief-stricken families, spoken to thousands of concerned citizens, public servants, sheriffs, and other law enforcement personnel, both on the border and in the interior. As a result, we confirm that American children and their families are being ignored. In Texas alone, there are thousands of family victims who have been pleading with their representatives at all levels of government who continue to be ignored. One needs only to look at the past to predict the future impacts of failing to protect our southern border. Crimes of murder, vehicular homicide, drunk driving killings, all preventable except for the lack of willingness of those whom we have entrusted with our lives. Politicians across Texas and America have thrown American citizens, our children, under the bus. Governor Perry, you must step up and answer this call quickly and with great regard for the safety and well-being of our children. Texas must act now, because Washington, D.C. and the Obama administration have no regard for the safety of American children. How do we know? Because we met with Chairman Goodlatte last year. We also met with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, and Eric Holder in May. And our situation is much worse now. The protective hand our families, our children need will not be extended from Washington, D.C. If current laws had been upheld, the death of our children, our loved ones, would have been prevented. 5-year-old Felix De Leon, riding his back, was run over by a drunk illegal alien. Shatavia Anderson shot in the back and robbed by an illegal alien murderer. Felicia Ruiz stabbed over 39 times by a man from Venezuela illegally in the country and still remains free to marry and raise daughters of his own. Jamil Shaw, shot because he was black by an illegal alien previously jailed. Joshua Wilkerson, being burned, choked, his body set on fire. The list goes on. Tessa, Drew, Danny Countryman, Lauren, all would be here today with their loving families if only current laws were upheld. So, Governor Perry and Attorney General Abbott, you have the opportunity to stop the pattern of killings, to stop the pattern of abuse by our government upon American families. Governor Perry, Attorney General Abbott, you can and must immediately protect Texas families, and ultimately all American families. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Korkmaz, Korkmas. I'm the president of T-FIRE, which is Texans for Immigration Reduction and Enforcement, an organization that was started by a gentleman named J.C. Hernandez and other legal immigrants who came here from Mexico and started the organization in 1997. Our members are statewide. Many of them are people who immigrated to the United States the proper way. And they went through all the things which are required of anyone to legally come to the United States. This message is to all politicians, including our Attorney General and our Governor. I want to make this very clear who is partly responsible for this. The cheap labor lobby in this state is responsible for this. They started it. They invited people to come in here by hiring them illegally. And you can always tell when someone is about to lie to you, or perhaps there are a few people who are simply unknowledgeable. But our immigration laws are not broken. They are ignored, and they are not enforced. And this started with the advent of NAFTA, because there was an Immigration Reform Control Act of 1986, and about the same time NAFTA was being worked on. NAFTA calls for the free flow of goods and services. We all know what goods are. Services relate to what people do. So we know who the source of this is. We also know that NAFTA also provided that eventually Canada, the United States, and Mexico were to be one. Remember the North American Union that got squashed when it started a few years ago? Well, this is an extension of what was started then. Now, the cheap labor lobby contributes a lot of money to Texas politicians, both Republican and Democrat. Anyone who doesn't believe that, all I have to do is invite you to go to the Texas Ethics Commission website, and you will find out who gives money to whom. People who utilize workers in restaurants and workers in the construction business are very prominent in the giving to Texas politicians. Why is this so important to them? For every position that they fill with someone who is willing to work for $5 less per hour, then they can hire an American citizen to do that job. They save $10,000 per year. So if you're hiring 1,000 people, I'll leave it to you to do the math. So what we have is a state, and we have business and industry that profits from this. Unfortunately, the cost of that illegal labor is transferred over to all of us because we are expected to pay for their family's education. We're expected to pay for basic services for health and education. Each child, an ELL or ESL child, costs approximately $9,600 for HISD. This gives you an idea of what this surge that's coming across the border is going to cost our school districts. So we have an invasion, and it has to be stopped. About 20 years ago, Bill Clinton was in office. There was an issue over in what had been Yugoslavia, and it was called at that time ethnic cleansing. What is going on right now in this country could be called ethnic replacement. Because what is happening right now is we are seeing the eradication of our Constitution and its rule of law. We're seeing the elimination of our borders, our language, and our culture. And anyone who does not think that a culture that embraces lawlessness will not become our dominant culture within a few years, I hate to tell you, you're wrong. It will be, because it already has. Otherwise, we would not have thousands of businesses willing to hire illegal aliens to work for them and paying them cash under the table. In summation, we know who you are. We know how much you're paid. We know who the politicians are that you pay. Politicians, Governor Perry, Attorney General Abbott, we know who gives money to you. It's time to step up and do the right thing. We like you. You're better than what we see out there on the other side of some issues. But the reality of it is we expect you to perform. If you don't perform, what are we to do? Tell me, what are we to do? Time is up. The time for stalling is over. Get off your dead end, get down to the border, and make something happen.
Good morning. My name is Ray Myers, and I'm with the Kaufman County Tea Party. And I'm here to tell you that we just got word this morning from State Senator-elect Bob Hall that there are 300,000 more on the trail coming now. That is between, I would say, the southern border of Texas and all the way from the northern border of Mexico. They're coming this way. 300,000 on top of what we got right now. And the federal government is shipping illegal families all across this country by the plane load, not just by the bus load, but by the plane load now. I got a report yesterday from Kathy Adams. Y'all may know her from Eagle Forum. And this report right here is on the internet. It said, how are these desperate people coming or able to travel the distance of more than thousands of miles from their home country of Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador to the United States border? The answer is apparently is that they are allowed to hitch a ride on the NAFTA train, which is owned and operated by an American company. These people are coming on American trains to our country. And they're not coming here to take peaches. They're coming here to get on the welfare system. Let's just tell it like it is. That's why they're coming. Okay? Obama's first demand was $307 billion, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Considering all the entitlement programs these kids will eventually soak up from our public schools, our medical system, it will be in the trillions of dollars. And who's going to pay for it? You guys know who's going to pay for it. Now, this just isn't started yesterday. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the cloud activity strategy. Anybody ever hear of that? Yeah. You know what the cloud activity strategy? Let me read you. Think about what's going on in America right now and in Texas, right here at our border. And I want you to listen to this very carefully because this is what's going on. The cloud activity strategy is a couple of guys that actually helped with the welfare, not the welfare system, but the ACORN program. Started this back when kind of a mentor from Saul Alinsky, 1966, but listen to how relevant it is today. The collaborative strategy seeks to hasten the fall of capitalism by overloading the government bureaucracy with a flood of impossible demands, thus pushing society into a crisis of economic collapse. That's scary. And that's happening. Think about all the, it's just amazing that there's just thousands and thousands all of a sudden coming this way. Folks, this is by design. Now let's get back to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. It says, no state shall, without consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops, ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement, compact with another state or foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded in such an imminent danger as not to admit or delay. Governor Perry, General Abbott, a statement, then a question. Think about this, folks. This is Governor Perry. What would happen if Governor Perry stepped behind one of these things, a microphone, anywhere in the state of Texas, and said, President Obama, as governor of the great state of Texas, I am your chief executive officer of this sovereign state. And because you have ignored your duty as president, and we have made it is a clear and present danger of disease, illegal gang members, dangerous cartels that may threaten the citizens of the state of Texas. Therefore, I am ordering the state of Texas and the Guard to the border. And if you don't like it, come and arrest me. Huh? What? Media, right here. Here's the question. What do you think Governor Perry told them would be tomorrow if he said that today? Huh? Think about it. It's very important. We want the governor to call a special session. And the reason for the special session, we wanted to secure the border with force. We want to enforce the rule of law. And we want the state legislature to close the candy stores. Huh? We have got to stop the magnets. We stop the magnets, they'll quit coming. Turn them around and send them back. Thank you.
Guys, I just want to remind you, we've got about 8 minutes, and we turn into pumpkins. We have to be out of this room, so I don't mean to hurry people, but y'all are making me tense.
My name is Michael Openshaw, O-P-E-N-S-H-A-W, and if you can't spell Michael, you don't belong working in the press. I am here, today I started out by talking to my wife, who is visiting her family in Taiwan, her mother and brother. I sent money to my Ugandan daughter, who I've been working with the Ugandan relief efforts for over 11 years. I delivered food to that a mother sent down to her son down here who are Iranian, and I also dealt with some issues for my Indian boss. I know a little bit about immigrants, and I will tell you, each one of those immigrants, every one of them, is not happy about this situation because it is making a mockery of the efforts they put in their own countries to come here legally. My wife spent 5 years preparing, working, studying, so she could qualify to come to the United States. And she came here from some of the best universities and has provided a technical expertise that this country needed at the time. We need to control this situation for any number of reasons. And we cannot wait for the regular session. By the time the state legislature has a regular session, we will have those 300,000 more that are going to be here. And I have several questions for the press. Why aren't you investigating any number of things? I'll give you examples. How many have actually seen the inside of these detention centers? Okay, we can't even get congressmen to go and visit these detention centers. What is going on in there? What kind of populations are we truly talking about? Everything we're talking about so far, anecdotal. We're not getting facts and figures from the Health and Human Services, people holding these people. This is the type of stuff that the press used to investigate and demand to have access. That is the type of thing that we would ask that the press be involved in. Some other things is these disease situations. My first career, I'm a computer hack at the moment, but my first career was as a medical microbiologist. We do have some concern for disease states that are coming across the border. We do know, through again, partially anecdotal information about some of what have been detected in the people that have been apprehended. What about those that have not? Also, come September, the school systems, particularly in Hispanic areas, are going to be in a flaming disaster. Do we have enough Spanish-speaking teachers now for those people? No, we don't even have enough for them. It is those school districts that will suffer the greatest harm from this influx that is uncontrolled. We need to control it. We need to call a special session so that the legislature can act on some of this. And my other point I would make is, where do we draw the line? As I said, I worked with Ugandan refugees. I have for 11 years. I can promise you I can find 1 million or 2 million of them who are better educated, speak English, and also are not ever involved in drug cartels because they shoot drug dealers over there, that we could bring into this country. Fine. Do we need to do that? No. We need to help these people where they are because we can do it far more cost efficiently. We need to send these kids back. We need to keep track of those people who are concerned about them, need to keep track and help them in place. And that is my recommendation. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Alice Linehan, and I am with Women on the Wall, and I'm here with the president of Women on the Wall, Rebecca Forrest. And we take on 3 major issues: education, immigration, and national security, and all are being covered today. And I want to paint a picture for you of the victims of the policies, not only of Obama, but of Governor Perry. When Governor Perry was running for president in the primary in a Florida debate, he said that you did not have a heart if you weren't for illegal or in-state tuition for illegal immigration or immigrants. Let me tell you something. Those moms in Central America who are sending their children over because they're being told that their child will get amnesty, that their child will get in-state tuition, that their child will be taken care of. As a mother, I don't know if I wouldn't do the same thing. But in that journey over, those children are raped, brutalized by gang members. Some are killed. Some are killed when they're trying to jump on a train and fall off. As a mother, that breaks my heart. So I'm thinking of those children who are being given a carrot, a dangling carrot, not only by Obama, but by Governor Perry as well, and the policies that have been in place in the state of Texas. Who else are the victims? My children. I'm a mother of 3 children. 2 of them are in the public school system. Is my children's school district prepared for the cost that's coming in with this $300,000? Is my school district prepared not only financially, but from a health aspect? Do the school board members know that this is even happening? Or, as what we've seen in the education world, things like Common Core and curriculum that's coming in, and you don't even know it till it's too late to fight back. That's what we're here today. We've been, all of us, as leaders within the grassroots movement, have been warning, have been begging, have been pleading to no avail. Well, right now, we're asking Governor Perry and Attorney General Abbott, show us that you're actually different from Obama. Show us, you wanted us to vote for you in the primary. Show us why we should vote for you, because as of right now, there is no difference. The policies that you're advocating are the same. You know, I'm not going to depend on Governor Perry. Because Governor Perry's excuse is that Obama's not taking care of it, the federal government's not taking care of it. Well, I'm demanding that you take care of it as the elected governor of this state. But as a mom who's got to protect my children, I will do everything to be loud and vocal and make sure that my local school district understands, that my local city council takes the charge in our own hands. But I'm demanding you show me that you're different. Show me that you're actually a conservative Republican. Thank you.
Do we have time? How much time we got?
You can do it.
All right.
I know you can.
Yeah, I can work this in pretty quickly. My name is Ken Emanuelson, it's spelled E-M-A-N-U-E-L-S-O-N. And what I would like to point out to everybody is, many of the people up here on this panel, I'm an attorney, and I'm very frustrated with our governor because apparently he's getting some very poor legal advice. And I would like for him to take some of that money that he spends on his donors and Formula One racetracks and spend it on some better lawyers. Because if he had better lawyers, they would tell him that he is the chief executive of the great state of Texas, and that he is fully empowered to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Texas, and that's actually his job, whether he's retired or not. He still has an office, he needs to do his job, and that doesn't really mean floating around on Rio Grande in a boat and being on television all over the country. He needs to be here in this building doing his job. And that job could include, for example, deciding that the National Guard needs to go to the border. He is the commander-in-chief of the National Guard. I heard him on television tell Obama, you know, please, Mr. Obama, please go tell the National Guard of Texas to go to the border. That makes no sense if you understand the way it's set up. The Texas National Guard reports to the governor of Texas, who happens to be Rick Perry. And I would think he would be aware of this fact, but apparently he's not. So, I'm telling you right now, Rick, you are the governor of Texas. The Texas National Guard reports to you. Put them to work. That's my main message, but secondarily, the issue of the responsibility for securing the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Texas, he cannot outsource that to the president. The president has a role to play, but if the president doesn't step up and do his job, that does not relieve our governor from his responsibility to take care of us, take care of our children, take care of our neighbors. I encourage you and implore you, Governor Perry and General Abbott, take care of this problem and do your jobs. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. Please need to exit.
Yeah.
We're going to do them outside.
JoAnn, you got another hour and a half.
Steve.
My name's
Steve Toth. Steve Toth.
Finish your point on the authority that the governor has to unleash DPS to uphold the rule of law. Finish that point and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, I would like to address that because there's been a lot of discussion, especially in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision in US v. Arizona, and a lot of the commentary on that has related to the idea that the states have a limited role to play in immigration and border enforcement.